you. Thanks, Jim. See you. Thank you. Everyone here? Right. Thank you so much for spreading across an enormous room, so I can't actually talk to each of you individually. Is that loud? Can everyone hear that? Okay, great. Alrighty, guys. So that was an interesting introduction. People are still coming in, but I will get started, and that just needs to be in with the time. You can't save your way for wealth is a statement that one mentor used to say 25 years ago. But over the last 25 years of wins, losses and wins in business, I found that actually you probably can save your way to wealth, or particularly your business can save its way to wealth. It can restructure its way to profit. So today, I'm going to be helping a number of you unlock $2 million, $100,000, $500,000, $3 million in your accountability chart. Can you identify which of you that I'm helping, please? Excellent. So those 11 people over there are the ones who here. Is anyone here going to get any benefit from what I'm going to speak about today? It's a long flight, guys. Thank you, sir. Thank you. All right. So what I know, having worked with leaders and entrepreneurs now for over 25 years, is that I know that this probably describes you right now. It describes you recently, if not now, or it will describe you in the future. Now, again, you may be, in a fortunate position where this isn't you, but as a rule, most leaders and entrepreneurs and business owners will be suffering from inefficiencies in your accountability chart. You will have overinflated wages in that accountability chart. You will also have leaders doing low-value tasks. Being that we all run EOS in this room, if you are elevating and delegating, and if you are focusing on right person, right seat, there will be efficiencies with doing that if we're only focusing on who's available to us locally. And if you are offshoring or outsourcing, my contention is that you are probably not doing it right. Now, the good news though is this is the game plan for today. I'm going to make sure that you guys get a playbook, or at least the theory, through some workshops, through some case studies, and through some understanding stories of how you can solve it. I'm going to speak to you about the difference between an offshoring strategy versus a random offshore tactics as well. So that's and I'm going to focus on this concept that you will see everywhere over our LinkedIn, or workforce re-engineering, and how that combined with offshoring is going to be the explosive growth mechanism for you. All right. So how do I know this? You were given a bit of a crazy introduction about it. I don't know who wrote that, but there's all there wasn't there something about Vegemite, top going karate kid, but the rest of it was all it's true. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to set this thing. I'm going to teleport you back 14 years to a place called Brisbane, Australia. My home. Not that I'm there that often anymore, but my wife and my girls are, and it's desperately missing me. Now, 13, 14 years ago in Brisbane, Australia, put yourself there, there's a 3-story office. Myself and my co-founder are in there. We met 27 years ago at university, had multiple businesses since that time. People partners, which I'm speaking to about effectively today, is the only business that we focus on. But 14 years ago, 3-story office, 94 staff, 17 cars on the road. I'm in my office, it's a day like any other day, just like you guys. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose, sometimes you're a millionaire, sometimes you're broke. Does that sound, for those entrepreneurs in the room, visionaries, integrators, focusing on how to keep everything afloat? And my co-founder yells out. So Ruben doesn't I find the dramatic one in our relationship, but that's as my work wife or my work husband, whatever you want to call it. And he yells out, and I come into his office. And this is his base, completely passion. Now, I'm the emotional one in our relationship, all right? I'm highs, low lows, just like a number of other visionaries. And he was about to tell me some news that made me furious. So what I'm about to tell you is I started yelling. And after I started yelling, looking at his grey face, I felt like I was going to throw up. Because you see, we had a large registered training organisation at this time. And that training organisation would teach people vocational training, which meant in between high school and university, we would teach people hospitality, commercial cookery, diplomas of business, which was crazy to too many scientists and exercise physiologists, but it's what our company did. Now, before I walked into that office, he received an email. And it was just a newsletter, super innocuous. And being a detailed personality, he read that newsletter. I never would, but he did. And it came from a state-based training authority. And somewhere deep in that newsletter, it said, by the way, check out some changes to funding. Now, guys, 70% of our revenue relied on government funding. We got it, our clients got it, there's a lot of people depending on it. So Ruben, who's out on our booth right now, he walked through and said, great, we're going to have a nice little bump. We're going to have 7% increase CPI, this will be beautiful. And when I walked into his office after yelling and looking at his face, he described to me what he saw, which was our funding was to be cut by 15%. Not just us, but the entire industry. And as we looked out across our organisation, 93 people, 17, 20 cars on the road, we realised that we would go bankrupt. We'd go into liquidation. There's no way we could run this business at 80% less revenue. So after we sat there for an eternity, figuring out what the heck are we going to do, and there was another fast-tracking the story for you so I can get to some really exciting stuff. But, you know, many sleepless nights, the wires crying, then doing most of the crying. We hatched a plan. Now, over the next 3 days, we're going to hear outsourcing, offshoring. We're going to see some examples of this. But back when we were looking at this, it wasn't really done very often. But we hatched a plan. What's happening with my slides, Chad? Just go. All right. Okay. Oh, Chad. You're releasing all my secrets. Or like, we're shot in monitor. Okay. 13 weeks later, from the moment we got that email, this was us in Quezon City in Eastwood in the Philippines with 35 of our staff. We took insane action. We moved, we took insane actions. Ruben moved himself, his wife, his 2 young boys to the Philippines. We were about to have a family, so I was flying in month in, month out. We leveraged everything we had, we sold everything we had. Do you ask, could I do this again today? No, I couldn't. We bought commercial real estate. We negotiated with Filipino authorities for visas. I met with the Australian ambassador to the Philippines, and we effectively set up this business, which became People Partners. Now, why am I telling you all this? Because a month and a half after this, at the end of the month, so we did our claiming. This is how we make our income. And we had our biggest month ever. So let that sink in. Our revenue was cut by 80%. Yet, over an 8 to 10 year history of business, we had our biggest month ever. In fact, extrapolating to that year, I listened to this number. We realised that we saved $2.13 million. $2.13 billion in profit. Now, the first thing we thought at that time was, why didn't we do this earlier? Like, could you imagine that? Because we can guarantee you at that point, we would have either not paying each other $1 million each. But that money would have gone straight through to our bottom line had we done what we did before we needed to. Now, here's the thing. Unless all of you in here are about to go bankrupt and into liquidation, then you can learn from our mistakes. Now, I don't know the size of your business. Maybe it was bigger than our trading organisation at that time. Maybe it was smaller. But that's why, for those of you, particularly over here, that identified yourself that I was going to tell you today, what I'm about to show you, the case studies, the stories, and the theory will make a number of you in this room find an extra 2 million, 100,000, 200,000 in your accountability chart. So, we ready?
Yeah.
All right, let's do this. So, what was the magic, and what's going to lead to the theory I'm about to show you is this is what we did. And this is the danger point, because some of you either are offshoring now or outsourcing, we were thinking of it. And some of you in this room are going to go, and I know this because clients always come to us this way. We're thinking of getting in the system. Awesome. How many staff do you have locally here in the States? 400. Okay, John. Okay, Debbie. Just to let you know, you're actually probably going to need 150. Not why. You don't have to, but that's a random tactic. It's not a strategy. The only reason this worked for us was because of the two secrets that I'm going to talk today. One, offshoring, yes. But number two, this concept, I'm pretty sure we invented it. This like we were close to it. Workforce re-engineering. Because we were a face-to-face training organisation. Remember that. We went out in the workplace and taught people business, taught people commercial cookery, taught people hospitality. So if we looked at who we could have offshored, it would have been like one person. Like most people come to us, we're looking for an assistant, an admin person. That's all we could have done. But we had to take massive action. So we looked at all of our accountability chart. It was our long term back then. We didn't kind of do understand. But we looked and we said, right, 10% of that role can be offshored. 90% of that role can be offshored. 70% of that, 20% of that one. We reimagine our workforces. And that's a strategy, not a tactic. We redid the way our accountability chart works so that we pull all the $6 an hour tasks away from the onshore leaders. And we learned that, as I said before, you can't outperform a lack of efficiency. No matter what you're doing from a growth point of view, it will always be beaten by efficiencies. So let's say right now, you've got $1 million in revenue. Now, some of you make a lot more than this stuff. You might make less. But in that $1 million of revenue, let's say right now you get fired up in this conference and you decide to go out and get more salespeople, do more marketing, doing a whole range of things, and then you increase your revenue by 20%. Well done. Congratulations. That's awesome. Most people don't do it. And again, doesn't matter what base, you'll pick $1 million. 1.2 million. Excellent. 200,000 in profit you've made. 200,000. Yes, 20,000. But, and I asked some people out the lobby, what is their profit margin here? What's NAP for Washington? No, what's NAP? Look out with 10%. Some of you might make 30% profit. Some of you may have 40, 50, 12 under you. Some of you aren't making profit. So it's been 10%. So for all that effort, what might be a whole year for you, sales people, marketing, SEO, digital, all sorts of things, you've made $20,000. Now I guarantee you with what I'm going to show you today, we can find an extra 20,000 in your accountability chart. We'll at least find 100, if not 200, if not 1 million. Oops. Sorry, go. Right. So when we look at workforce engineering, we think of these concepts. We realize that exponential effects plus workforce engineering, picking and reimagining those roles, 10% here, 30% here, 50% here, that plus global staffing and an exponential effect. So let's look at some examples before we get to some stories and case studies. All right, the business might spend 500,000 in labour to produce 700,000 in income. For those bachelors in the room, 71%. Spend for labour. That's pretty normal. All right. Let's say we start to reimagine roles and we start to become more efficient with what businesses could look like, stripping $6 an hour tasks away from onshore people. So they're only focusing on the important $100 an hour tasks. Okay. So we increased efficiency with the workforce re-engineering. Now we've got labour down to 36%. Now we inject global staffing for a 70% discount. And now we're down to 11%. So as you can see there, collapsing 71% down to 11%. Increase in gross margin from 200 to 625. So 213%. Now again,
What's the difference between those two?
so this one here, I've done some case studies for you. This one here is what I said before. If we just added global staffing, if we said, hey, let's get some offshore people, I'll get that little system, I'll get something like that, we never would have got that result. So this here is what I'm going to spend the time on today. And this is showing how we can find inefficiencies inside your accountability chart. Okay, so it's re-engineering and reimagining your workforce, not just having a random tactic of let's get the system offshore. Okay, then we supercharge with offshoring. Because realistically, and whilst yes, we have a business based on outsourcing and offshoring, even if you just focus on workforce engineering today, this will change your life. Okay? And a number of you in our clients will be able to attest to that. All right. So when we apply that knowledge, we've got an absolute amazing tool we developed. It came from me flying back from Miami, absolutely flabbergasted with a now client's accountability chart. And we've got a process that we go through. We're going to make sure that this tool and a whole range of case studies and stories, ebooks to teach you this is going to be available for you through a QR scan. So not only am I just teaching you everything today, you'll also have it at the end as well. All right, so that's a tool that we use to look at those inefficiencies, to find those 10, 20, 30, 70% of inefficiencies in those org charts or accountability charts, and to actually focus on a delegate delegate strategy that works. All right, so case studies. So you know it worked for us. You know this is what gave rise to People Partners. That story gave rise to our business 14 years ago. So let's look at this. This is a business that runs on EOS. Naturally. Imagine, if you will, this accountability chart. You've got the visionary, you've got the integrator. It's pretty interesting, pretty cool. Now, the accountability chart is very much more complicated than that. Okay, I'm just doing it for the example. But the way that it's set is you've got two medical systems. You've got the head of the practices, so head of practice 1, head of practice 2. They've also got the divisions that probably most of you have, right? Okay. Now, each of these heads of department have a lot more staff than that. All right. But just for the sake of the exercise, we minimize the in-depth part of the accountability chart. Okay. Now, when they came to us, like usual, they came to us with their 300 or so staff onshore in Carolina, rather than England. And of course, they send that like an assistant. It's pretty normal. And implement to reverse it to us, and then like an assistant, of course. And then after we get off our high horse and talk about, guys, don't do random offshore tactics, do a strategy. We start to measure the minds. And this is what we discovered through workforce re-engineering. We focused on the visionary, the integrator, and the managers first. And this is what we found out. They all had somewhere around 10 to 15 responsibilities. It wasn't this clean cut. Like it's messy, like all of our companies, right? But we discovered they all had about 10 to 15 different things that they did on a daily basis, on a weekly basis. But here's what was interesting. Now hear me when I say this. This only came because we analysed the parts that everyone did. Okay? So we're not just saying that Janice here needs some help. We went in, and even if there was a role that apparently didn't need help, we analysed that role. And you can all do this for yourselves. but you go in task by task, what do they do on a daily basis? And this is what we found, something super interesting. Each one of them did budgets, reporting, and scheduling. Now, the most detailed manager, who's detailed through, but the detailed person is an integrator or a detailed, who's the visionaries or people that don't know anything about detail, and everyone else is just here because they heard an Australian speak. So the most detailed manager took 8 hours a week to do those 3 things. 8 hours a week. How long do you think the most people person manager, if that makes sense, took a week to do just those 3 things? What is fear? Yeah. So the most people person, 22 hours per week to do those 3 cuts. So if we look at that across that group, that was 90 hours that business is paying for those people to do 3 tasks. Let's assume that's $100 an hour. Some may be making more, some may be making less, but let's say $100 an hour, right? $9,000 a week. That extrapolates to $468,000 a year that they're paying for those 3 tasks. Who are the maths freaks in the room? Who's starting to get really turned on? Like, you see my point here, right? Okay. Look, let's get the system. No. Let's analyze the task that every person is doing to find out where the $6 an hour tasks. So more importantly, as they teach us in EOS, who is not working in their strength and passion zone. So, $468,000 a year. Here's what we do. Won't go into the mission or the integrator and what happened there, but needless to say, they did it in the system. Then we went to recruit it offshore people who were in their strength and passion zone, and we hired for them an auditor, a finance coordinator, a scheduler, and a business insights person, saving them hundreds of thousands of dollars per year just with that one insight. Now, what we're doing now, of course, is they're all hired, they're all doing the do, everyone's happy, everyone's working in their strength and passion zones. And it's not just to save you the money. If you imagine what those leaders and managers are doing with the extra 8 to 22 hours of their week, like that's insane, right? You imagine giving your managers and leaders an extra 22 hours a week back in their diaries. What could that accomplish? And here's a complicated one. So for the detailed people in the room, you're going to love this. If you're not, it's going to be a bit tricky. But let me walk you through some specific things. Another business running on EOS, close to 2,000 people in this organisation. Now, what would I like you to focus on specifically here? Feel free to take it all in. The accountability chart is a lot more messy than this. There's 2,000 people in this company. It's very, very detailed. But what I'd like you to focus on is, first of all, the bottom point where we say accounts split. Because naturally, I keep picking my clients when they first come to us, helping with their psychology. That's what they thought they did. Hey, Implementer introduces us. I think they did an account split. One's about to go on with today's rules. Cool. So you've got 2,000 people in Melbourne, Australia, and you like an account split. And of course, we help them with that. It's a shark flood problem. So naturally, we help find those shitty limits about this. But when we got to questioning the integrator, because of course, the vision is just difficult to do it. So we spoke to the integrator. And again, on vision based on the video. What we discovered was, see that care manager, we discovered 2 things I'd like you to focus on. Care managers. This was the role that kept them awake at night. That's the role that's hard to onboard, hard to retain, hard to train, hard to learn. When they did do it, they all quit. So thinking of this is a good point. Where do you start? Roles that are hard to find, hard to keep, hard to train. They're a constraint in your business. And we also found something else out. Now, as to my introduction, all things being equal, I'd be described as an exercise physiologist, applied science degree. So that was my work, all right, room state. And each of these people love working with their patients, but 3 to 4 hours of that is billable. Because what do you do for the rest of the day? type your call notes in, rebook your patients in, invoice, etc. So this is to say that we discovered these care managers that are an impossible role to keep them awake at night, lose money, insane. And all of these allied health professionals are only able to do income creating work for 3 to 4 hours a day. The rest is a waste. They can't bill for the rest of it. This is admin. All right?
Must have with that side.
Cool. Okay. So this is what we did. Simple things. You'll get some things here. All right? Re-engineered it. We effectively hired offshore 3 client scheduling coordinators, 3 case manager assistants, 1 case management liaison officer. And we hired a healthcare assistant for each one of those allied health professionals. And then, of course, we reordered the finance department. Now, each of these people was offshore. They're now acting in their strength and passion zones. So the OSDs, the SEOs, the XPIs, the speech pathologists, all they're doing is seeing patients, loving what they do, elevate and delegate. That's all they're doing, what they'd like to do, $100 an hour tasks so they can bill for. And their offshore team is doing their case notes, invoicing, rescheduling. And of course, all of these in orange under the case managers, the care managers are all doing what they do in their stricter passion zone, admin work, and the care managers are just working with their clients. So what I'd like to do now is a bit of a interactive case study. And we had Mentimeter available, but it isn't working in this room. So let's now get into this. All right. So what I'd like you to do is all chill your inner sales manager. So for those of you that are sales managers, this is going to be easy for you. For those of you that aren't, pretend you are. And I would like you to imagine your 5 field-based business development managers and salespeople. Now I've got a board here. It's going to be great for you guys to see. Just so I have to have a loud voice and a microphone. I'm actually double mic'd up today. I've got the room and I've got the photographer recording me. So it's fine. All mic'd up. My marketing team said if you're coming from Australia, you better be recorded. But no, that's good. All right. So start throwing me some answers. You're looking at your sales team. They're field-based. What do salespeople generally like to do?
With just sell.
Yep, exactly. They like to have discussions. They like to sell. They're people, right? What don't they like to do? Start to give you some things. When I take some notes. Yep. CRM, reports. What else?
People.
Say again.
People.
Yeah.
Notes.
Yeah. Paperwork, notes.
It's a
Explain what it's doing. Be accountable for their work. Just having copies there. Who's out there? Explain it. Well, actually, no, I don't like that because that's super important. Okay. And if I don't come back to it, I'll try to remember it afterwards. Okay. So what do those things have in common? They're detailed work, right? Because this is what we do. Think about this. Think about it for anyone in your organisation. We hire our local people in the US, in Australia, in Canada, in the UK. We hire them to do something, and we pay a lot of money for them to do that because that's what moves the needle. But what do we require from them as well as what moves the needle? All of that. CRMs, paperwork, other reporting things. All right? So, that was Mentimeter. Okay. Ignore the Mentimeter, but just look at the question. There's a few examples here, but you will get it. So what I'd like you to do now is tell me, given some of those case studies I ran through, as I said before, when you're all weeks, we come visit us, we're going to whiteboard, we're going to work first engineer your company if you like. No problem, all right? But for the people that yelled out, again, what we got was CRM reports, paperwork, notes, being accountable and explaining what they do on a daily basis. What could be some roles that could be re-engineered to support those salespeople? What could be some roles? You get this kind of roles. An assistant, that's an easy one. Yep. Mm-hmm. What else?
Scheduler.
Yes. Scheduler? Yeah, absolutely.
Would that be a coordinated session? So for
yeah, this is important too. Whatever you call your segmented workforce is what you call them. So whilst I'm not here educators, I'm here to talk about people partners, but that's an important thing. So people will come up to us all the time and go, do you have this? Do you have that? And it's like, well, we'll have whatever we need to recruit and hire for you. Whatever you call them in your company, it will be what we call to how they have self-coordinator was the answer. And he's right, despite everyone else was right. So here's an example of what we have done time and time again. Then the first handful of times is completely tailored to workforce engineered, reimagining roles, but this always works well. So again, I see a lot of you take notes, see a lot of you taking photos. This is a great structure for a sales team. Now, depending on the sales team and how much volume you do, you may have in one role. But 3 of these roles works really well. A lead generator whose sole job is to telemarket, make phone calls, and book at least 4 meetings a day, as an example, to punctuate what your salespeople are doing. So who said about explain what they're doing? Was someone here? Yeah, I've read the front row. Yeah, so here's the funny thing, right? I'll say this. So they book the meetings, and the sales coordinator runs their diary, confirms the appointments, writes in all the call notes, sends the follow-up meeting invites, does the actual grunt work, okay? And here's the funny thing, every time we've done this with the company, and we absolutely did this with Redmaco, our training organisation. This was one of the roles. We had 5 salespeople on the road, this exact example, all right? And this is what we did for ourselves. And what happens is the offshore person normally thinks they're managing the offshore person, but the offshore person is in detail, all right? That's their stricter passion zone. So I can absolutely tell you the tail wags the dog, all right? Without a doubt. It's, hey, John, have you got your call notes from the last 3 people? Could you send me a dictation and let me know how you've gone? Let me know what I'm writing. Let me know what I'm following up. Let me know where I'm following up. How many kids do they have? What's the next thing happening so that you've got something so when you ring in 3 days if they have answered, so you can ask them how that birthday party went. So that's the thing. And then, of course, account manager, because once they become a client, you need someone with fun, right? And that isn't necessarily salary. So maybe you do this with your company, maybe you don't. But the whole point here again is that we didn't just go, let's get an assistant. Yes, you need one, but we can do better than that. We can look at the tasks that they are doing on a daily basis that they're doing it. And again, if you've only got a small team, if they've only got a small accountability, it may just be an assistant. But as it gets bigger, the idea is to have those narrow roles that really define what they're doing. Because in those segments of roles, they're different skill sets that we're recruiting for. The sales coordinator, okay, is going to be very detailed if he's got to manage her onshore salesperson. The lead gen, in this example, I'm not saying you need this role, is a telemarketer. So they obviously need to have a thick skin and they need to be able to cold call if that's what's required. And an account manager is the one that's likely to be conversing with clients. So that one needs to be more friendly. That one needs to be a people person. That one needs to have a really, really good, neutral, if not US accent, right? So that's what we're doing there. So this whole thing, I've left a lot of time for questions, is what we've been covering today is the fact that it's not just about offshoring, right? It's about reimagining your workforces, okay? It is about being able to go in and look at the 10%, 70%, 80% of tasks that are done by your onshore leaders, managers, and rate makers that is distracting them from the $100 an hour tasks that they should be doing and stripping them away. And like the example that I showed you first up, the first case study, the medical sectors, some of those efficiencies wouldn't have been found if you only looked in isolation at one person's role. So if you only had one manager that's kicking and screaming about performing, you don't, well, maybe they need some help, maybe they're an assistant, maybe they're not the right person in the right seat, and it would have versioned them. But when you looked across your entire accountability chart, you can see trends. So in summary, I'm leaving a lot of time for questions because all leaders, people want to throw examples out with their own company. How much could you save and boost your profits by? Because whilst I've also said that efficiency is far better than growth, we're all entrepreneurs and business people, so you want both. All right. So when the other company I showed you as well, freeing up that 90 hours a week can lead to growth. Efficiency versus growth, I just said, let's go and get both of them. And again, it's the workforce engineering, the reimagining of those roles, stripping away $6 an hour urgent tasks that they shouldn't be doing, and adding in global cycling. And again, small company, 1 or 2 is fine. If you're sitting here with 10 staff, onshore staff, you're probably need 3 or 4. If you're sitting here with 500, you probably need 100. But it takes time. It's not going to happen overnight. It's a process. That's going to give you the necessary short fix. And again, whilst we're here to learn about the student billions of 100,000 to 600,000, also one of the greatest things that we've seen with all of our clients and you will too is that if you can get people working in a strength and passion zone, they're not going to leads. Provided she's that person too, right? I've got the taste of it there, but I'll tell you this personally. All right. So before we get into questions, as I said, just want to give away to you guys. All right. Today is just the tip of the iceberg in terms of what I've been able to give you with quite a lot of time. But scan that QR code. What it's going to do, it says book and strategy session, but most importantly, it's going to unlock a free ebook that is going to really delve into reimagining workforces, workforce engineering, and some low staffing stuff. But really, really educating, because again, that's all we see ourselves as. Like everything we do is a considered process. All right, so it does often involve getting into the weeds with your accountability chart and supporting it. All right, and as I said, we're going to give you the ebook. We're going to teach you more about workforce engineering, reimagining roles. We're out there in the atrium, so please come and visit us. We've got the whiteboard. We'll play around with your accountability chart, and anything else you need, let us know.